Hi and welcome. My name is Lawrence Baker and this video is going to be about setting up Yoast for the first time. So it's aimed at new users. Maybe you're new to WordPress. I'm using the free version. There is a premium version. Let's get going. Once you first install Yoast and activate it, you're prompted to run the configuration wizard. You can rerun it at any time you like. Environment. A, my site is live and ready to be indexed. B, it's under construction and should not be indexed. Indexing, or the word index in the SEO world, means this. The search engine bot goes round, takes your data, puts it into an index, someone queries Google, let's say, and then Google look in their index and give them the information. So the index is very important. Next, you can put what you like there. I mean, I only had one page and I made it live. It's entirely up to you. You can always come back. Site type. This is only to focus your mind at the moment. So make sure you know what your site is all about. So I went from a blog to an online shop. So it's not massively important, but pick something. Next. This is about Google's knowledge graph card. What do I mean by that? Well, that is a knowledge graph card for an organization. It probably uses structured data from Sony's site and from other sites. Structured data is a way of marking up data so that search engines understand it better and can present it better. So there'll be things like organization, etc., etc. It's based on something called schema.org, and that's also the actual website name. Go and read about it. It's a little bit boring. Or if you don't want to read the schema.org instructions or documents, just search about structured data, because structured data is very important. And also Yoast do a lot of the heavy lifting around structured data for you. Going forward from 2020, structured data will get more and more important. So here I'm saying I'm an organization, and that's my name, my organization name. That's my logo. I made that 500 by 500 pixels. I don't know actually what they want anyway. And these are my social media profiles. So if I put in there someone like Barack Obama, like so, that's his people knowledge card. So some of it will be coming from his own site. Some of it's coming from Wikipedia. Some of it will be coming from Amazon, let's say, about his books. The profiles could be coming from his page, the social media profiles. Google can create these programmatically without using structured data, but it makes their life easier. So that's what this is all about. If you are an organization, obviously pick organization. If you're a person, pick person. I think you've got more chance showing up as an organization than you do as a person. This is for famous people, which I'm not. And organization, well, I stand a chance. So that's what I've done. It's just a bit of structured data saying I'm an organization. So everything else is about social media profiles and my logo. Next. This will be yes by default, search engine visibility, because you can turn off individual taxonomies, things like posts and pages, etc., and products. You can turn them off, them being indexed by search engines. Some search bots will respect it, some won't, but Google definitely do. So should you show posts? Well, if you don't know, a post is driven by a MySQL database. It has categories, it has tags if you want categories and tags, it has timestamps and a lot of other taxonomies. Yes, you do want your post to show. Pages, on the other hand, are static. Like my gallery page on my site is static. Doesn't have and it can't have things like tags and categories and other taxonomies. It's just a page. Both look like web pages, but posts are definitely driven by a database. That's really the guts of WordPress, really, posts. That's how it started off as a blogging platform. People say blog posts, but it's just posts, and pages are static pages, just called pages. Products, I use WooCommerce for my photographs, I sell my photographs. WooCommerce uses structured data to tell the search engines that these are products. So for me, it's very important my products show up in the search results. I'll quickly show you something. If I come here and say, I'll put my name in, Bembridge, and I'll go to images because I'm setting my images here. You can see there, sand dunes at Bembridge Harbour in stock. So if I click on here, you can see it's got a price there. That is structured data for a product. Then I can click on it and go to that product. There is a plugin from Yoast for WooCommerce. I have paid for the premium version of Yoast for WooCommerce. So there you go. That's a product. Everything else here, I don't really use. I don't use my themes galleries, and my themes have created some of these taxonomies here. Central Grid Post, that's a plugin I've got. So I used to have them all on Yes because I thought, well, I don't even, have any information on them, so it can't be shown. But now I've got a bit more fussy and I've gone back and said no. But honestly, if you're not using these things, it doesn't matter. But by default, you definitely want posts, pages, and products if you are selling products. Next, multiple authors. If you are the single author on the site, that can cause problems because that means you have duplicate content, because you'll have an archive for each author. And if you're the only author, then all your posts will show up and that will match the posts you do, your blog posts. That can cause problems. I don't think it applies to the pages, only the posts. I tried to change this to no because I am the only person and it won't let me do it. Now, I believe it's because, go into my settings here, dashboard, get to the settings, go to reading, and you can see here for each post in a feed, and that's important because you have feeds for categories and tags, etc., and every other taxonomy. I'm saying show a summary. If I go to my blog, pick anything, it doesn't matter, that will do. All my posts have categories and tags. You can see the categories up there. If I click on that, photography, every post I've ever done for photography will show up, but it will only show an excerpt and continue reading. So there's no duplicate content issue for me because in the reading settings, I've not put full text. And that's maybe why I can't change that to no, because they're saying it doesn't matter, but I'm not 100% sure. I need to find out. Next. Now, this is how you would like to show up. This is your website name. And again, that probably came from the settings general. It's pre-populated for the site title there, Lawrence Baker, Isle of Wight Landscape Photographer. So here, that was probably pre-populated using that general setting. The separator I want to see in the results, but I'll show you something. If I just go here, go Lawrence Baker as a search on my page, you can see my homepage here is using a colon. So I was trying to say to Google, use a dash, and they don't care. They're going to use the colon. Google will do what they like, basically. So that goes to show you that's not changed anything. I've had that since I first had Yoast here. I used that separator. I've not changed it. It's Google saying, well, yeah, you might want that, but we're not going to give it to you. So next. Marketing, very good Yoast. Some fantastic courses. You can look at a video, blah, blah, blah. Close the wizard. So if you didn't want to go any further, you could, because Yoast has done a lot of the heavy lifting for you. But I'm going to run through the settings. In my next video, I'll go to the on-page stuff you do with Yoast. But in this video, I'm just going to deal with the settings. You could go away now knowing a little bit about structured data, and Yoast has done a lot of work for you. But I'm going to take you through things. So features are features of Yoast in the editing environment. I would say you need them all on except for write integration, which is off by default. I've got a write account. It's a way, if you click here, of getting a check to see if your site is always up. I mean, I get emails from all over the place about that from my hosting provider. So write is something really you don't have to worry about. Everything else you need to on, because it will show you things like SEO analysis when you're editing stuff as well. And that's probably more for the next video, but I would just tell you, keep it all on. It'll be very boring to go through all of it, but I will mention XML sitemaps, extensible markup language. Sitemaps are almost in text, and it's just a listing of all the pages you have on your site you want to be indexed. If I click here, I can see my sitemap. Now, for a small site, it might not be that important. For a large site, it definitely is. So you can see here, that is the sitemap. It shows the last modification date. So if Google comes around and says, Well, that hasn't changed. It won't re-index it. It won't update the index. And that makes Google go around your site faster. That's something called the crawl budget. So it's very important if you've got a very large site to have a sitemap so it doesn't tie Google up and tie your server up. XML sitemaps, yes, you need them. You can get away with it, not having it on a small site, but Yoast do it for you anyway. So why turn it off? Cornerstone content, I will mention quickly. I write about Photoshop, but some of my posts are very important to me. I spent a lot of effort on them. That would be cornerstone content. It doesn't really affect Google and can affect the way Yoast works in the premium version and things like that. So it's a good way of saying, well, this is what I really care about. And you turn it on post or page basis. I can't show it to you now, but I will in the next video. You can, inside of Yoast, redirect things, and that's called a 301. That's a HTTP response code. So if you've got a 301, let's say a search bot comes to that page, and you can say that page still exists, but I want you to go to this page now and index that page. So if you had something that was really important in your site, let's say you were selling something, it's really important, a lot of people bought it, but basically you weren't making it anymore, you weren't selling it, people might have it in their bookmarks, let's say, go to it, and now you can redirect them somewhere else. Now, that's quite a lot of control you've got there. You can do that inside of Yoast. So if you don't want other people to do it, you can turn it off or have it on. So no advanced settings for authors. So you can have it to off. It's entirely up to you. I'm the only user on my site. But it's all about Yoast, really. It's not to do with any other security settings because Yoast will allow you to redirect stuff. That's that bit dealt with. Webmaster Tools. If you've got Yoast, you need Webmaster Tools. Definitely Google Search Console. I will show you Google Search Console now, my Google Search Console, and that's how it looks. It's very important. It's Google telling you about the performance and coverage of your site, etc., etc. Now, I have got another site I haven't actually verified. There's many ways of verifying. I can add a HTML page to my root folder, my root directory. I can add a tag to the home page, like so. So I might have to get a plugin in WordPress like headers and footers to put that tag in. So it's quite fiddly and somewhat advanced. If I've got a Google Analytics account, I can use that to verify my site because I've already got it on my site. Same for Google Tag Manager. What I've done now is use the domain name provider, and that's the best way because then you don't have to declare a canonical URL, and I will explain that in a minute. So if you haven't gone down any route yet, and I suggest even if you have got Google Search Console, you go back and verify as a domain. So you have to go to your domain name server records, and usually that's with your hosting provider, and they might help you put this information on. It's under the cPanel, under the DNS settings. It's entirely up to you, but it's the best way. Even the way of putting it into the HTML tag, you would have to use a plugin if you're not a WordPress developer. But I'm telling you now, the best method is the domain method. With Google, that's fine. But with Bing Webmaster Tools, you can't use the domain method. So what you could do is get your code, and instead of getting a plugin, you can just add the code here. Just add it in, and that will put it into the head of the homepage. Now, if you don't go down the domain route, that's fine. Get your code from Google and put it here. It will save you putting it into the head of your homepage. I've got Yandex here. Why not? I tried to get Baidu. I couldn't make head or tail of it. Yandex will work in English for me. Baidu is Chinese, and Google Translate couldn't help me. With Yandex, it was all in English. Why not have use of Yandex Search Console? That's that dealt with. We've run the configuration wizard. Keyword research. These are links and nothing else, and really nothing to do with the settings. SEO settings general will bring us back to this bit here, which we were on already. So features and Webmaster Tools. Search appearance. General, we did this in the configuration. So knowledge graph, etc., home and front page, blah, blah, blah. All this we've done already. There's the dash. Content types. This is important. Let me collapse that. I would say the only ones you should really care about are the posts and pages and products. Yes, you want to show up. I think they're all on by default, the whole lot of them. Yes, you want to show up. Date, to me, that's very important. You don't want to hoodwink people by making out, let's say, a Photoshop post is relevant when you did it 10 years ago. So they see that in the search snippet often, not always. They will see it often in the search snippet. So they can say, well, actually, that's really out of date. I'm not going to click on that. If you didn't show the date and they clicked on it and they came back very quickly to Google, that is a negative ranking signal for search. So I don't like to hoodwink people, and some people do that, and by sort of messing around with the date in WordPress. I don't do that. I just leave it as it is. Basically, I like to show the date. Yoast SEO Meta Box, that's when you edit a page, and I'm not going to show you that in this video, but it's normally on show. Leave it like it is. Now, these are the templates that Yoast will recreate for you without you doing anything. So basically, you don't have to worry if you've done the configuration. You'll have some very standard templates which can be used by Google or Bing to show you in the search listings. You're trying to influence the search listing by saying, use my SEO title and use the meta description. These are both in the head of the page. Now, the meta description is your description of your page, and the title is the title you've given it. Google do not have to use either your title or your meta description, and they often don't. And the reason being is this: if you've got some content on the page that Google think is relevant to the person searching, and that's called user intent, but your title or meta description do not fit in with that search query, they will use some copy on your page, and they will even create copy from using words on your page and making up their own sentences. And I've seen that happen. Don't worry too much about this. You can change it for yourself. And the only place I've really changed it is for my products, because I didn't want truncation. So I've messed around with the templates. So the default templates are pretty fine. Don't touch them until you really know what you're doing, because you might mess things up. Not massively. This is stuff in the head of the file that Google will decide whether they want to use it or not. But once you get used to Yoast, come back and change things, create your own templates. Now, media, I don't know if you've seen this before. Sometimes when you upload an image, it gets its own URL, which just points to a link where you click on the link, then go to the image. This stops that, and you basically go straight to the image. So it's recommended you set this to yes, keep it on that. Taxonomies, which is just a posh word for classification. Categories, let's collapse that up. Categories are with every version of WordPress, categories and tags, etc. So yes, I want to show them in the search results. You can mess around with the template. I haven't actually. Tags, you can do the same thing. I don't think I messed around with that template either. Formats, I recommend you disable this. I don't know if it's disabled by default, but honestly, you don't need it. The rest is about taxonomies, about my plugins and my theme. And honestly, do I want my lenses showing up? Because it's quite possible, because if you bring in an image with a lot of IPTC data, and if you're not a photographer, you won't know what I'm talking about, you can have these things show up as a search result. I don't think that's relevant, so I've set all these to no, but a few things I've set to yes, and I don't explain why, because it's about photography. But basically, a lot of this stuff, like countries, I've got no. I don't want hundreds of pages. I'll show you what I mean by that. If I go here and go site Lawrence Baker, I've got about 50 pages thereabouts. I could look at my sitemap. I've got 745 results. Most of them will be stuff that really, let's go to number 10 there. Sea spray archives. Some of this stuff, I know some people might say it's grist to the mill. It's all information that Google can use, but really, do I want to show up for sea spray? I don't, so I turn it off now. It's going to take a while to go away, obviously, when Google comes back to crawl my site, because I've only just changed some of these literally a day ago. So there you go. I've turned some of them off. They'll all be on by default. And as I say, these things will be relative to you, your theme and your plugins. But as you go through in time, decide whether you want certain things to show up in search results, because it just crowds out the results, basically. Archives. Now, I said I could turn off the author archives, etc., etc. I tried to disable it here. It won't let me do it either. There's obviously a good reason for this, but I don't know why it is. But I've done here, do not show author archives in search results, because I've got my posts. I don't really want people to see under my author archive my posts. Archives are sort of difficult to understand in WordPress. It basically means like things like categories and stuff like that. Everything gets archived in a certain way under author, etc., etc. What I'm saying is it doesn't matter, so I've gone for no. Date archive settings I've disabled as well, because in the old days of WordPress, do you remember you used to see those dates you could click on and see the blog post for that date? I think that's old hat now, so I've disabled that. And special pages are things like you search for and you've not got, basically, and you can, you know, make your own templates here. Very good. And 404 pages not found, separate a site title. You could put another tagline there as well if you wanted to. That's what that's all about. Now, breadcrumbs, if it's disabled, leave it on disabled till you really know what your theme's all about. Now, it can be really confusing, this, because basically Yoast say you have to sort of do certain things to your theme with the PHP and stuff like that, and it's quite complicated. I enabled it and I'm thinking, is it going to work? And is it working? I don't think it is. So I might go back and disable it. It's a bit complex for this video, but I honestly would say if it's on disabled, don't enable it. What are breadcrumbs? Well, that's a breadcrumb there. That's a breadcrumb there. Now, RSS is really simple syndication. Yeah. Feedly, for instance, is a RSS reader. It's Feedly. I've got it. And you can basically add sites in if they supply an RSS feed. So I like it because I've got a lot of SEO companies in my RSS Feedly setup. So if they put out a blog post, I can go to Feedly and say, oh, they've done a blog post. Some sites don't offer it, but all WordPress sites do offer it. So don't change anything. It's absolutely fine. But I use an RSS feeder. It's kind of old hat now. Many people wouldn't even know what it was. SEO settings, what we got left. Search Console, Google Search Console now have not allowed their API to be used, so that page needs to be removed. I'm sure they will when they update Yoast. Social, I've talked about structured data from schema.org for Google and Yahoo and Bing, etc. Social sites like Facebook have their own structured data. Now, Facebook is called Open Graph. So again, all these were probably done by me in the configuration wizard, but when I look in Facebook here, it says add open graph metadata. Now, what that means is when someone shares a page on your site or a post, basically it will use things like the featured image, etc., etc. I don't know how it works for pages, but for posts, it will use the featured image. That's why I always have a featured image now. I turn them off, and I realized when I shared something or someone else shared one of my posts, I had a sort of placeholder for an image and it just didn't look nice. Now, if I go to developer mode and go Command F here, I think if I put OG in, there you are, meta property, OG locale and all this sort of stuff. OG is open graph. So that's the description probably for Facebook. And it will show, you know, the link to the featured image, etc., etc. So that is where it shows up in the head. And I'll quickly show you here, meta description while I'm here as well, because the meta description I'm going to show you in the next video. But so that's my meta description, and that was done by Yoast. Will Google use it? They might do. And the title, there's the title. Will Google always use it? Not always, but it's there, and the meta description is there to be used if Google want to use it, or Bing or whatever. That's what that's all about. So Facebook have their own open graph metadata. I would say to you, if you're doing posts, do put a featured image on because they will use it. But on a page-by-page basis, you can add your own image if you want to. But if you've got a featured image, it will use that. Twitter does actually use Facebook's open graph data, metadata, because it's open source, but they have their own, which is Twitter card metadata. So Yoast will do this for you as well, and you can change it from summary to summary with a large image, etc., etc. Pinterest, well, you need a confirmation, and your Pinterest site will have to be a business one as well. And it's very, very useful for people like me who have got products that are like images, because I can basically add them as rich tags or rich pins, as they call them, rich products to Pinterest. And Pinterest is great for visual stuff. I've definitely done that, and I'm seeing the benefits of it as well. So what else have we got? Tools. And the video is nearly finished if you get a bit bored. Import and export. If you had an old SEO plugin, I can't remember the name of the other big one now, but anyway, you could import data from that or export data to it. I don't know if it works for every SEO plugin, but I'm sure it works for the big ones. File editor. This is very advanced. Robots.txt. Basically instructions to robots about things they can do and can't do. So you can stop them, let's say, taking your images up to Google Images, so little things like that. It's really quite an interesting thing to read about, robots.txt, you know, because if you're a photographer and you think people are lifting your images all the time, you can basically make them only have the very small thumbnail images on Google search, image search, but not the big ones. You can do a lot here. But it's for another video, basically. Now, the HT access file is to do with, it's an Apache server, basic instructions to that. It looks like rocket science, but it's quite simple in many ways. You can change a lot of things here and you can mess up a lot of things. So be very careful. So back to the tools page and the bulk editor. And this is the last one. You can basically make changes in bulk to your products or your posts, etc., etc. I don't use it, and I did spot a bug, and Yoast are going to change it because I noticed there was gaps where I shouldn't have gaps, and it's because I created my own templates for things and it through Yoast. But they are actually addressing that. What I will say about Yoast, they're constantly giving you updates because they're constantly looking at things. And that gives me confidence that they really care. They're trying to keep things up to date. So this is the setup done, really. I know there's a lot there. The big takeaway is structured data. Now you understand about the knowledge graph and stuff like that. And you don't have to go into this depth to get Yoast to work for you. It's just that if you want to, you can. So once you run the wizard, you can sit back. Now maybe, you know, a couple of months later, go and start looking at individual pages. So that's it. If I'd done everything, it would have taken about an hour. But in the next video, I'll show you the on-page stuff, the SEO analysis, things like that, and the readability. And that's all very important. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much.